This is the real Tom Rose, and this question is a tricky one. There is a super shortcut that you can employ right off the bat, which is that this is tough to spot, and you have to know a lot about absolute values. But remember that an absolute value, its job is to take whatever is inside of it. These are these two vertical lines. Take whatever's inside of it and make that thing positive. So they're saying, suppose we do that. Find the values of x for which that thing is equal to -2. Well, since absolute values make things positive no matter what, there is no situation where this will ever be equal to -2. So the answer is no solution. And you can just see that because you can't have a negative number equal to an absolute value ever. Now, this is a good, so if you solved this using a more complicated method, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to show you where you can protect yourself. So a common thing that I do when I'm solving equations that have absolute values is I like to neutralize them because it's very difficult to do algebra across an absolute value. So I look at two universes. So let's look at the universe where 5 minus 3x is positive. In the universe where 5 minus 3x is positive, that absolute value is doing nothing because all it does is make things positive. So you can ignore it, which means we would have the equation 5 minus 3x equals -2, which you can solve. So you could say 5 plus 2 is 7 equals 3x, therefore x equals 7/3. Now it's tempting right at this moment to say, oh man, 7/3, that's an answer choice, go over to the side and pick that. But remember that whenever you're dealing with an absolute value and you have looked at a particular universe, you've created a false reality. You have said, hypothetically, supposing 5 minus 3x is positive, then this is the answer. And what you now need to go check is, in order to verify that that's true, you have to say, when I plug this in, is this in fact positive? Because if not, then this universe doesn't actually exist. So we solved an equation in a universe that is non-existent. And if you do that, if you plug in 7/3 in for x right here, what you will get is the value -2. But remember that we solved for this value of x under the assumption that 5 minus 3x is positive, and this is not positive. So this universe, the assumption that we made at the very beginning to allow us to solve, that one did not exist. That was a false universe, which means this is a false answer. This is why I was saying this is a really tricky absolute value problem, because it requires that you have very high level absolute value solving skills. Now, there's also another universe that you need to solve. So let's say 5 minus 3x is negative, right? If you solve in that universe, what you'll find is, so what does the absolute value sign do if it's negative? Well, it makes things positive. This is the same as multiplying by -1. So let's do this. -1 times 5 minus 3x equals -2. Now let's solve that. So if we do 5 minus 3x equals 2, we can get 5 minus 2 is 3 equals 3x, and x equals 1. And again, oh man, that's on the answer choice list. It's right here. So again, very tempting to just pick that and move on. But remember that anytime you have created a hypothetical universe, before you pick that answer, you need to plug back in and make sure that that universe does in fact exist. So if I plug in a 1 here, 5 minus 3 is 2, right? That is a positive number. But remember, I was operating under the assumption that 5 minus 3x was negative, which is not true. So this is a false universe as well, which means this is also a false answer, which means there is in fact no solution here, and you should not pick 1, you should not pick 7/3, and there's really no reason to ever pick these. That would be an algebra mistake.